In the vast scroll of history, some of the most profound changes are made not with swords or speeches, but with something far quieter: letters, spelling, language, a shift so subtle, most never even notice it. Or rather, Korea, a single letter, carries the weight of an entire nation's colonial past and identity crisis. This is the story of how Korea became Korea, and why that one changed letter still echoes through time. For centuries, Western texts, from European maps to international treaties, referred to the ancient kingdom on the eastern edge of Asia as Korea. French diplomats wrote it, as Corea English maps labeled it Korea. Even during the late Joseon dynasty, when Korea started engaging with Western powers, this was the spelling everyone used. Korea wasn't just a name, it was the global norm, tied to the identity of an ancient civilization. But that changed in the early 20th century, not by chance, but possibly by imperial design. To understand the shift, we must return to a pivotal period in East Asian history, the late 1800s and early 1900s, when Japan's imperial ambitions were rapidly expanding. Following its victory in the First Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895, and later in the Russo-Japanese War, 1904-1905, Japan began tightening its grip on the Korean peninsula. In 1910, this grip became absolute. Japan officially annexed Korea, turning it into a colony under full imperial control. The land that had long been independent, proud, and culturally rich was now under foreign occupation. And this is where the story takes a curious turn. Around the time Japan annexed Korea, something strange began appearing in Western texts. The name Korea, the one used for centuries, started to disappear. In its place emerged a new spelling, Korea. At first it might seem insignificant. After all, C and K can sound nearly identical. But language, especially in the world of colonial dominance, is rarely innocent. You see, international listings, alphabetic order matters. Whether it was at global conferences, expositions, diplomatic rosters, or Olympic events, countries were often listed in alphabetical order. And in that system, Korea would always come before Japan, but change the C too. K, and suddenly Japan comes first. It's a small detail, barely worth noticing, but in the eyes of an imperial power desperate for recognition, symbolism matters, though Japan never issued an official statement mandating the change. From Korea to Korea, the timing is too perfect to ignore. Right after annexation, the K version rapidly gained traction in diplomatic circles, English publications, and international correspondence. Japan itself, when writing Korea's name in English, exclusively used the K version. They were, after all, presenting Korea to the world not as an independent nation, but as part of their growing empire. And they wanted to control not just the land, but the narrative. Many Korean scholars and historians believe this wasn't just a coincidence. It was a deliberate erasure, a strategic renaming, a way for Japan to demote Korea's place, subtly reinforcing its own superiority in global perception. Because if Japan came before Korea on the list, it meant something: prestige, power, priority. And so the letter changed. The world started saying Korea. Maps were reprinted. Dictionaries were edited. Diplomatic documents adopted the new spelling, and most didn't question it. But this wasn't just a story of external control. Within Korea, people felt the weight of that letter deeply. Language was being used as a tool of colonization. The Japanese Empire tried to suppress the Korean language, replacing it in schools with Japanese. Korean names were forcibly changed. Historical sites were destroyed or renamed. And amid it all, the shift from Korea to Korea symbolized a deeper loss, the erasure of cultural identity. What's even more ironic is that Korea itself wasn't just a random Western label. It had roots in Korea's own dynastic past. The name likely derived from the Goryeo dynasty, which ruled Korea from the 10th to the 14th century. The famous Silk Road traveler Marco Polo referred to the country as Kali, which was likely his interpretation of Goryeo. Over time, Europeans evolved that into Korea. So in many ways, Korea was historically closer to Korea's actual name than Korea ever was. When Korea finally regained its independence in 1945, after Japan's defeat in World War II, one might have expected a return to Korea. But by then, the K spelling was deeply entrenched in international usage. Changing it back would have caused widespread confusion in diplomatic, legal, and global affairs. And so, the newly formed Republic of Korea, South Korea, decided to retain the K. It wasn't a choice made out of preference, but out of practicality. Still, the memory of Korea didn't die. To this day, many South Koreans see Korea as the more authentic name, a symbol of resistance, heritage, and pride. Some Olympic teams and fans wave banners that read Korea. Artists and writers sometimes use it in poetic form. Whenever conversations turn to colonialism and historical injustice, the topic resurfaces. Was the name change just a spelling tweak, or was it a deliberate act of erasure? Even North Korea, in its official name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, uses the K, though their stance on the colonial legacy is even more intense. Both nations, though divided politically, share this linguistic inheritance, a name born from empire, identity, and survival. Language is power. This story is a haunting reminder that sometimes the fight for sovereignty doesn't just happen on battlefields. It happens in spellings, in words, in the margins of maps, and the footnotes of treaties. The next time you write Korea, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what stories lie behind that K? What empire's fingerprints shaped its adoption? What would have happened if the world had refused to forget Korea? A letter may be small, but history has proven even a single letter can change the course of a nation. If you found this story fascinating, share it with someone who loves hidden history. The world is full of stories like this, quiet changes that shaped entire nations. Follow us for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. And remember, sometimes the truth hides not in what we say, but in how we spell it.